Welcome to today's webinar on Brightspace for Social Emotional Learning. We're really excited to have you join us. We thank you for carving out some time in your day to be with us. Before we get started, I want to let you know about a few housekeeping items. So in Zoom, closed captions are available for you, so feel free to turn them on or off depending on your needs. The Zoom question and answer box is open for any questions that you have throughout today's session. Please keep questions specific to today's topic, and we'll do our best to answer any questions during the session. But if you don't see an answer to your question while we're here together today, be sure to check out the question and answer report that we'll send out in a follow-up email. Today's session is going to be recorded, or is being recorded, and it will be posted on the Bright Ideas for K-12 YouTube playlist, and you can expect to see that video posted within a week. And in the coming days, we'll send all of the registrants an email with a link to that playlist, a copy of the slide deck that I'm presenting, which also will contain some additional resources that I'll go over at the end of the webinar, and then also a copy of any questions and answers from today's session. So we'll get started with our agenda here. So we have some quick introductions, and from there we'll frame our conversation on social emotional learning and the CASEL competency model. Next, we'll have a live demo in Brightspace. And to finish off, we'll go through the additional resources I mentioned. And if all goes according to plan timing-wise, we'll have some time for some more question and answer and a little bit of further discussion. My name is Heather Lougheed, and I am a customer success specialist here at D2L. And I have my colleague Christina here with me today, and she will be answering any questions you may have in the Q&A box. Before D2L, we both worked in the classroom, and we're really excited to still work with school districts like yours across North America. And before we get too far, let's align on some terms here. So D2L is the company that Christina and I work for, and Brightspace is the product we make, a learning management system. And depending on where you work, your district may call Brightspace something like eClass, iLearn NYC, or the VLE. And although some of your districts may have different names for their learning management system, they all refer to Brightspace. In addition, our Brightspace community is a hub of resources where you can connect with other Brightspace users and seek out additional information on Brightspace. And a link is going to be in the chat for folks if you would like to join Brightspace community if you haven't done so already. And another term for today is that throughout this presentation, I'll be using both social emotional learning and SEL, and I switch back between the two, but I just want to let you know that they're referring to the same sets of skills and practices, and I'm using them interchangeably. So by the end of this session, we hope that you are able to have had the opportunity to explore and learn how Brightspace tools can be intentionally used to support social emotional learning. I hope that you will be able to design at least one SEL focused learning activity with a Brightspace tool. If you want to follow along today with your own Brightspace open, that's a great thing to do as we go through. And I also hope that you will be able to apply strategies for embedding social emotional learning into your everyday instruction and academics. So to frame our session today, we are going to use the social emotional competencies from the CASEL model and look at how each area of this model can align with various tools in Brightspace. CASEL is the collaborative for academic social emotional learning. And if this is something that you're just learning about today or that you're not quite familiar with, there will be a link to this model in the resource section of this presentation. So you can learn more about it, you can explore further. There's lots of great resources on their website. So CASEL has 5 competencies on their social emotional learning model. So the first is self-management. the ability to manage one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors effectively in different situations, and to achieve goals and aspirations. So in Brightspace, we can use tools like awards, checklists, quizzes that have 0 point questions, which I will go over near the end of our session today. So these tools can help students with self-discipline and self-motivation, and as well as goal setting. Next, we have self-awareness. So this is the ability to understand one's own emotions, thoughts, and values, and how they influence behavior across contexts. So in Brightspace, we can use portfolio and class progress to help students to develop their growth mindset and reflect on their own learning. And then we have responsible decision making. So, this is the ability to make caring and constructive choices about personal behavior and social interactions across diverse situations. We can use Brightspace discussions and activity feed here to support students in reflecting on their role within the greater community. And next up is relationship skills. So, this is the ability to establish and maintain healthy and supportive relationships and to effectively navigate settings with diverse individuals and groups. So, a key element of this competency is communication. So, opening the activity feed for comments, which I'll go over in our session here together, and starting discussion forums are both a great way to support students in developing effective communication skills. And finally, we have social awareness. So, this is the ability to understand the perspectives of and empathize with others, including those with diverse backgrounds, cultures, and contexts. So, we can use groups, video note, and activity feed in Brightspace to encourage students to connect with their peers, take others' perspectives, and recognize strengths in others. So when we take a look at all of this, we do see some overlap among Brightspace tools across the competencies. And we also find that many of these skills are also really, the skills are most effectively developed when they are learned alongside academic content. So when we embed all of this within our courses, it can be really effective. So here I am in my high school physics course. And the first thing that we are going to look at is our activity feed here. And something to note is that your homepage may look a little bit different than the way mine is. This could be dependent on your organization, depending on how you have it set up personally. And this would all be based on the permissions and how your organization has done this. So this is activity feed here. And when we want to support digital citizenship, responsibility, and relationships, the activity feed is an ideal tool. It has a social media style format, which encourages students to pause, reflect, and think before they post. So I am going to make a post here. And I have a message that I am going to copy and paste in. And I want to point out this allow comments section. So when we enable commenting on activity feed, it really has that similar feel to social media, which is a really familiar interface for students. And this can help students to understand different perspectives and build relationships with others. And a couple things to note about this tool in general is that parents and guardians would not see any comments that get posted by students. They would only see the original post that I am making right now. Additionally, instructors can choose to post this later. So we have heard from some educators that they really like to set up a few posts at a time and schedule them for a week or a month. So I am going to post this here. And then once this is posted, I can click on this ellipses here. I can edit this message if needed, and I can also pin this post to the top. So if I want this post to remain at the top, really keep a conversation going with my students, That will remain there, and then any subsequent posts that I make would show up below this. So the activity feed really supports social emotional learning by helping students slow down, reflect, and practice responsible communication in a familiar social media style space. Next up, we are going to look at portfolio. So, portfolio provides learners with a structured space to collect evidence of learning, reflect on their experiences, and make meaning of their growth over time. So, from a social emotional learning perspective, portfolio strongly supports self awareness by encouraging students to reflect intentionally, recognize their strengths, and build confidence in their learning journey. So rather than only focusing on grades or final products, portfolio allows students to tell the story of their learning. Maybe what they tried, what worked, what was challenging, and how they grew. So this kind of reflection helps students develop a stronger sense of identity as learners and supports goal setting over time. So we are going to go into Frank's portfolio here. And you can see that there are two pieces of evidence in Frank's portfolio right now. And I'm going to jump in to this experiment here. So you can see that Frank has uploaded a photo from the lab and along with an audio reflection. So this is a powerful example of social emotional learning in action. So this isn't just work being submitted, it is reflection on the experience, explaining his thinking, and making meaning of what he learned. And audio is a great tool because it allows students to express themselves in a more natural, personal way, which can increase confidence and student voice. Students can also take a moment to pause and think about their learning process and type something in, some of their thoughts. So, this can really be tied to responsible decision making and self awareness. And as I scroll down here as well, students and teachers are able to categorize these pieces of evidence. And so if we click here on adding a category, these can be set up at the school level and they can also be set up at the class level. So I have this here to be categorized as science labs. And categorizing this is really valuable because it helps students organize their learning, recognize patterns over time, such as noticing improvement, persistence, growth in a particular area, how they worked with other folks in a group setting. And categories could also be set up with the 5 SEL competencies to be able to monitor that as well. And just to give you a little bit more of a tour of the portfolio tool, is on the right side is where the instructor can review and assess. So written feedback can be added in here, and this can just be typed in and press add. Rubrics can also be added in here. So these rubrics can be made visible to students, helping them understand expectations and reflect on their progress. And the rubric evaluations are auto-saved and published. And they make that feedback really clear and timely. And then continuing to scroll down here, we have outcomes that are aligned. So learning outcomes from the Achievement Standards Network that are mapped to the class, those can be directly aligned to portfolio evidence. So this helps students and families really see how learning connects to broader goals, supporting clarity, motivation, and confidence. And continuing here, another important feature is the private notes section. So this allows for educators to record observations that students or parents don't see, such as social, emotional, or behavioral notes that really could be helpful for support planning. And you can make these notes visible to your colleagues if you have a team teaching environment. And just to note here that it is defaulted as not visible, but then it can be turned on there. And then finally, the Share with Guardians feature allows families to view selected portfolio evidence through the Brightspace Parent and Guardian app. So this gives parents insight into what their students are learning, how they're learning it, and they can really build empathy, celebrate growth, and strengthen that homeschool connection. So, portfolio really transforms learning evidence into opportunities for reflection, voice, and growth, and really helps students build self awareness, take ownership of their learning, and feel proud of the progress that they're making. And so, I'm going to head out of there now, and I'm going to head over to our content space. And I'm going to show you our discussions tool. So, discussions is a really powerful tool for supporting social emotional learning because it creates that intentional space for students to communicate thoughtfully, similar to our activity feed, but in a different format that might require a little bit longer responses depending on how you have this set up. But it really gives students time to think before responding, which is an essential skill tied to responsible decision making. So, discussions, students might not just be answering a question. They could be really practicing how to express their thoughts clearly, consider how their words might impact other, and choose language that is respectful and appropriate. So, this makes discussions an ideal space for building that digital citizenship and healthy online communication habits. So within our getting started module here, there is an example of how to introduce yourself. So there's one example of a discussion that you could have set up. And I'm just going to show you how we can do this. So within content space, we can create new and discussion. And so I'm going to give this a title here. And then I also have a description here. So something that is really great about the discussion tool is that it has the full Brightspace editor as well. So if you wanted to use the video note tool, that is here for both you as a teacher and for your students. So instead of just typing, students can record a video, and this can really help with building empathy by seeing and hearing their classmates' perspectives. And something that is really important within the discussions tool is building out those guidelines of how can we talk to each other here in this digital space and really build that classroom community. And so I am going to save and close this. And then here we have our discussion right in our content space for learners to participate in. Next up, I am going to open up this virtual help and office hours module for us to take a look at checklists. So I designed this particular checklist to support self-management and self-awareness during high stress moments like exam preparation. So I'm going to open this up to show you how we can set this up here. And so with our checklists, we can use it to track academic tasks, but we can also use it to help students pause, reflect, and regulate their emotions. Preparing for exams can feel really overwhelming, and when students are stressed learning, the performance can often suffer. So, this checklist encourages students to check in with themselves and take small intentional actions that support their well being. It reinforces the idea that taking care of yourself is part of being a successful learner. So I already have this checklist all set up, but I can show you here how we can add a new item to the checklist. And for all of these, I only have a name of them, but you can go into further detail to add more of a description. And again, you have the full Brightspace editor here to help your students out. And that is all saved in my checklist. So as I said, that this checklist helps students manage stress during exam preparation. We can also use checklists for task completion with academics, which can really help with that self-management. So I am popping over here into a student view. So you can see here that I'm logged in as Samantha, and this is what she is seeing as a student. And please note that this is a different course than our high school physics one. I'm in a junior intermediate science course now. And so I have this checklist here in my ecosystems unit. And this is just for demonstration purposes to show you from a student perspective a different kind of checklist that is more assignment based. So here it has three different tasks that are built out, and they have items and descriptions. And then we have here this last task here that we can check off, and a student can press save. So two different ways that we can use checklists, and can be a really great tool for that social emotional learning space, and in the academic space, or combined together, which is even better. And so now here I am back in my slideshow, and I wanted to let you folks know that in December, we released 0 point quiz questions. So this is where you can enter 0 points in the points field for any question type. And this is a small change, but it unlocks a lot of flexibility when it comes to social emotional learning by creating a space for self-assessment, reflection, and honest student input. So teachers can use these questions for things like readiness check-ins before starting a lesson, self-assessments where students reflect on their understanding or competence, and social emotional check-ins where there's really that no right or wrong answer. And we'll revisit our takeaways from today. So we went over how we can intentionally use Brightspace tools to support social emotional learning. And I hope that some of the examples I showed you, you are now able to use to design a social emotional learning focused activity. And then finally, I hope you take away some strategies to embed social emotional learning into your everyday instruction. And while we go through the last few slides here, we would love if you would take a few moments to fill out our survey. We would love to get your feedback, as these results help us improve our offerings and make sure that we are delivering what it is that you want to see. And there is a QR code on the screen if you have your smartphone available to scan that, or there is a link in the chat for you to click on and go do our survey. But thank you in advance for taking the time to do that. And I also wanted to point out on this slide that we have two links that will direct you to the Brightspace community, where you can learn more about our approach to product feedback and learn more about participating in user experience research. So those two spots that are underlined are hyperlinked. And we also invite you to join the D2L Champions program. Being a champion gives you the opportunity to receive points for sharing your experience, providing feedback, and even for checking out our webinars like this one. And you can then redeem these points for swag, gift cards, charity options, and additional D2L services. And you can find the link for the Champions program in the chat. And we have some more sessions to come, and here's a look at the topics we have planned through May. Christina's going to pop the link there in the chat for you to sign up for the upcoming webinars. And we'll also put a link to the session descriptions in the chat as well. And please pass these links along to others in your organization that would be interested in attending, as it's open to all Brightspace users. And I want to point out that on March 6th, we have a webinar on new content experience, which is part of our Upgrade Essentials. If you are a new user to the new content experience or your organization is transitioning, this would be a very useful webinar to attend. And we hope to see you there. And additionally, our training team hosts 2 monthly webinar sessions for all Brightspace users. The first one is a Q&A drop-in session where you can get your Brightspace question answered in real time. And the second one that is offered is what's new in Brightspace, and this goes over our monthly release notes. These sessions give you free access to our D2L training team in a way that you may not get otherwise. So be sure to check them out if you're available, and Christina is going to put that link in the chat for you as well. And I briefly wanted to show you the 3 slides here just at the end of this presentation. These are all hyperlinks for you, and they will be in that document that gets sent out in an email. So keep an eye out for these slides if you are looking for additional resources. Thank you so much for attending today. It was great to have you here, and we hope to see you next month. But take care.